Right, hello there. My name is Drew Goings, and this is my research evaluation. I've conducted a lot of different types of research for this FMP. Some of the most useful research was for my practitioner research. I really liked researching Hirohiko Araki and how he implements contrapuntal music as well as music in general to deepen his stories, as well as to provide a dark contrast to the scene he uses the music in, as well as how he implements villains into our everyday society, making us look at people differently. Really find that kind of horror inspiring to this project as well. I also really liked researching Satoshi Kon, who directed the psychological animated horror film Perfect Blue, which greatly inspired my short film for this year. I also found great help with the research I did on the genre as a whole, looking at how horror reflects the fears of each society in each given era, which ties back into my qualitative research, which I will touch on later. Another piece of really good practitioner research I did was from Dominic Pinner, who gave me a lot of great advice on how the production and post-production process should go, which has greatly inspired me and I think is probably the most useful information I've been given during this research session. I feel like the least useful practitioner research I did was on Dennis Paley and Doug Bradley, as I feel like I didn't get enough out of those with script writing and actors. However, I still think it was useful to look at them. I found my survey also quite useful, and it's quantitative research, which allowed me to find a target audience with lots of numbers of students being interested in psychological horrors, which told me who to make this movie for. However, a problem with that survey was with a lot of joke answers, which gave me a lot of mixed results, which I found somewhat annoying, which led me to make a focus group, which also, although wasn't the best, it still allowed me to understand deeper about what students think of psychological horror. A piece of qualitative research that greatly helped me in this project would be learning what students fear, as well as how that fear is reflected in society. As what I learned from a survey was that students tend to fear the unknown. I feel like that tells us a lot, as nowadays with our ever-changing society, we don't know what's going to happen next, and we're always fearing for what could come, which I think is reflected in these students' fears, which I believe I could implement pretty well into my short horror film. In addition to this, I feel like I should also mention my technical research, including how I've developed my skills with camera movement, including zooms, pans and tilts, as well as utilizing POV shots and slow motion into films. I feel like these skills are greatly useful for this project, where I really want to experiment how I direct and shoot a scene. I've also developed more skills into Foley art, which might help me create a sense of tension with sound. I've also been trying to develop my skill in color grading, which I believe will be greatly important to this project. However, this technical research will be continuing onwards for me still, because I still feel like there's a lot of technical skills I would like to learn that I want to implement into this project, such as the dolly zoom. The piece of research I did find as useful, though, would be research into the BBFC ratings, as I'm already quite familiar with them. Not that they're not useful to this project, but I just don't find them as useful as, say, research into my practitioners. I would also argue that my budget research is quite unfulfilling as well, currently, as I am not aware of how much everything will cost for my film, with a rough budget of £100. Another piece of research I think could be developed better in the future would be research into my competitors, as I believe currently competitor research isn't too important for me at the moment compared to other types of research, and comes more after post-production. In the end, I found most of my research quite useful, with only bits that I cannot find useful at the moment or do not think are as valuable as other pieces of research. I am quite satisfied, and I will be now logging off. And I will see you, hopefully, when I have finished this film next. Bye bye.